between black men and white women, and coerced sex between white men. I think that the fear of what that discourse could bring, and it did bring, listen, Wells was like, you know, they call it the little ladies are driving the street, everybody's crashing. Every place she went, it was just home. And she'd be actually kind of ruthless about it, because people surprised her this story. As a result of it, because of this discourse, but it also hurt us. So there's this great incident, as you know, where Wells comes back from England and is going to do an interview with the New York newspapers, and a group of ministers come up to her and say, please don't talk about the situation. And she said, well, this is the point, because that was the point that unraveled all of this idea of framework around the nation. So she insisted, but she really got them. You know that some newspapers called her a black hole. The New York Times called her a dirty-minded mulattress. That's my favorite. Black men. There's a black newspaper editor, you know, who said muzzle the man talking about Wells. When we get through with her, her mother's, she's going to wish her mother hadn't conceived her 10 months ago. I mean, obvious. But she knew that's what she was going to confront. She thought it was important. It's really very important to let you know that. And we don't have that. You know, Darwin Heim talks about that culture of dissemblance. There's lots of black women, particularly, who very consciously destroy everything that they could. They talk about their personal lives and their sexual lives. And so, if you don't have that full biography, it's very, very hard to write a certain kind of biography. You write about their achievements, but you try to sort of connect their inner lives with what's going on. It's very hard to do. I had the worst time in the world trying to write this thing. I mean, it's just not a. This was about constructing an image, competing constructions of black images as well. It's not just, you know, the people before her. I mean, the editorial. Anyone who can have a project where you should look at the black press in the late 19th century, just do it. It's wonderful. The writing is just wonderful in much of it. It's passionate and it's well done and it's well constructed. But many of them, the publishers were like, they had strong opinions, but they didn't do research like she did. I mean, she really becomes a much more modern figure in newspapers. She documents everything and does go to the site and does these interviews. She doesn't just do editorials, and that's really important. She learns too to write narratives, and they're very vivid. So she just doesn't tell you what's happening, she shows you what is happening. She talks about it, she says about these consensual relationships, she lists them. She mentions names. She makes people subjects. You know, you can sense who these pictures people are. So she's so as a journalist, she's just splendid as well. And she struggles with writing. She's not always such a good writer. Boy, she really figures it out. And when she learns to let herself go, she tries to be very refined for a long time. She has these treatment essays which are just horrible. You know, she tries to write. Because it's not her. But she does learn the modern notion of, you know, authenticity, not just sincerity. And the idea where the sort of the subconscious and the consciousness can meet. And that's when you have authentic writing. And she learns how to do that. And so it's very important. She's the first and foremost, she's a wonderful writer. Black women and black men, by the way, and white women and white men. There was one sort of complete success that she has is when she's in the British Islands. The English absolutely embrace her and create an anti-lynching committee, you know, made up of everyone from the Duke of Argyll, to Keir Hardie will form the Labour Party later on. And she's completely embraced. And embraced after all these negative comments start coming.
Yes, yes.
And she will respond. When she goes back, she's very angry about who did not defend her. And she names names. And one day she says, what am I doing? My reputation is wrong, of defending people and people not you. But her sexuality discourse was very difficult for people to, among other things. Mm-hmm. And her radicalism and her idea about leadership, which was not, she didn't think a leader should be leading. She thought it should be ground up. And so this was very controversial. Person, even, as I say, even taking into account the double standard around progressive women, she is tough. She is tough.
Her political relationship with Marcus Garvey, because that was something that I hadn't heard about before, and even I had heard that sort of the precursor to the FBI, like the first double agents ever used are used with Marcus Garvey, but I had no idea that was in part due to the relationship with Ivy Wells.
When it comes to the states, of course, the story, trying to find Booker T. Washington, the Booker guys. And so he goes up and mentions a number of black leaders, among them Ferdinand Barnett, her husband, was prominent, and Barnett's, and they meet. And I like Garvey a lot because he's that kind of grassroots leader. She says, though, she didn't think that boat scheme was going to go too well. Otherwise, she would be. She liked it. She actually speaks for the UNIA a couple of times, and was actually elected along with A. Randolph and Madam C.J. Walker as to represent the UNIA for the Paris Peace Talks in Versailles. And there's another great incident where she talks also to the UNIA in Baltimore, and people have heard, though, that the spies and intelligence people were there. And they sort of asked Ida to calm down her rhetoric with people there because she's trying to get this passport to go to Versailles. And this is of course, this is the first time, really, the Passport Act is very new under Woodrow Wilson. It really begins kind of the sophisticated intelligence networks that we now have. It really starts under his administration. And they had surveillance groups just for African Americans. But even so, Wells is denied the passport as is Madam C.J. Walker. Du Bois gets over there. But she, so that's it. And of course, Monroe Trotter is denied, but he sneaks, he's sneaking on the ship as a cook. He gets over to Versailles, and I can just imagine Woodrow Wilson's, he's Woodrow Wilson's nemesis. I just imagine Woodrow Wilson's face because Trotter said in a note saying he'd like to see him in Paris. So she's very self-conscious also. She also, of course, wins that court case in the Chesapeake, Ohio. So she's known by it, and then she's writing about it in 1884. And she becomes a very successful journalist. And one reason is because she doesn't write like women write. She writes some of the good stuff, but she also writes a lot of political stuff. It's really sort of outside of her. But it's probably about black men. So she's very self-conscious about that. She's very critical. Those people were but a good person rather than a nice person. She's good. And one of those people who probably was Mary Helen Washington once said this. She said, Ida Wells reminds me of my aunt. The only person she really liked was her husband. And I think she and her husband were very close, and they were friends as well. And